thing to do. So I've now started recording the meeting. So we've just kicked off. We're running through the just the introduction. And how would you get hold of those profits that could be reasonably yours? How would you make more money from the next customer that came through your door, or if you're a business-to-business provider, called you up on the phone looking for advice, guidance, and assistance? And there are basically just two ways to do this. One, essentially, you sell whatever it was you were going to sell to that customer at a higher price and make more money from them directly. Or you sell more to them. In other words, you get better at selling. You sell more quantity of goods and services to them. And in the best of all worlds, you do a bit of both at the same time, which would really result in increased profits for your business. So our agenda really is around those two things. It's in three sections. First and foremost, a section I've titled Put Prices Up. Going to go run through some what I think is quite interesting facts and data, partly based on the findings from the retail price comparison that really look at pricing in the businesses who have taken part, and I've got no reason to believe that that would be any difference to businesses more generally, and about how resilient your pricing actually is, and how emotional people are about changing pricing, and how much they overestimate and underestimate the consequences of raising prices. So we're going to deal with that. And then into the selling side of things, which I've really divided into two parts. The first one is making customers unhappy. I don't mean that literally. This is all about the issue of being genuinely customer centric and being genuinely customer focused, which everyone, of course, says they are. The issue is that the best in this field do a lot to gather and look at customer satisfaction information. And the reason I've called it making customers unhappy is because you're going to need to find ways of getting into asking customers how you could improve. In other words, you're going to make them unhappy because they're going to have to look and think about the things that you're doing that aren't as good as perhaps they would like, or ideas they've got for how you could improve. That's what that's about. And talking customers into buying. Again, that's a provocative title. And it's really about the whole issue of how you go about selling, and the fact that it can sometimes be perceived as an exercise in persuading and convincing and almost forcing customers into making purchases, when in actual fact it's not that at all, and is much more around presenting options. And in that section, we're also going to, if we get time to get to it, that is, we're also going to look at the whole issue of handling price objections, what's behind price objections, and some words to use. And indeed, with the make customers happy, this is also true. There are words and phrases that I just don't hear people using, and I'm going to cover off the issue of evidence. And whilst you may think that you're serving customers to a very high standard, and indeed no one's suggesting that you're not, it's all about communicating to customers that that's what you're trying to do, and the way you do that is through particular words and phrases that you might use. So with no further ado, unless anyone has any questions at this stage, I'm going to kick off with the first section, putting prices up. I'm going to start that by asking a question, which this is all based on how the workshop runs, and it could be difficult to collect the answers. It really depends on how interaction works. But you've got a choice. You've got two options, and it's concerning the sale of widgets. You buy them at £10 and sell them for 15, and you sell 10 of them a week. Now you've got two choices, and it's really what your gut tells you as to which of those two choices is the best. Do you raise prices 10% but lose 20% of sales? Would that be better for your business? Or would option B, dropping prices 10% but increasing sales 20% by volume, that is, as a result, would that be the better option? Anyone interested in having an opinion on that? Or shall I move on? Okay, on the basis that no one's saying anything right now, let's move on. Well, the way to look at this is to consider the facts and what it means. That's our current situation. As I said, we buy them for 10, we sell them for 15, we sell 10 of them a week. Income 150, revenue 150 pounds. The cost of sales, which is just the direct cost of buying in those widgets, is 100 pounds. We make 50 pound profit. Fine. What about the two options? And you can see them just beside there. Raising prices 10% but losing 20% of sales, or the opposite, I suppose, or the mirror of that, which is losing 10% of your price or reducing prices 10%, discounting, you could say 10%, in the expectation of raising prices volumes 20%. We'll assume that you've achieved that with no marketing. Well, there's the numbers. Put prices up, and sure enough, revenue goes up. But what's interesting is when you take account of cost of sales, because once you take that into account, as you can see, actually raising your prices but allowing sales to drop, you've still made more money. The final option, losing 10% of price or dropping prices 10% but increasing sales by 20%, does not recoup the money that you have given away by dropping prices. So quite often what people do is, when asked this question, is they focus on this line. That's the first thing they think about. It's, well, how much money do I make? How much money comes in through the door? And naturally, yeah, if you lose volume, then your revenue is going to drop. But what they usually don't take account of is this whole business about cost of sales. And so what can be quite an emotional response in and around the prospect of raising prices and losing sales gets lost because they concentrate on this line. Just to look at that, some work on sort of break even. So let's say we taking the option of dropping prices and raising volume. The actual volume needed to get back to where we were, to recover the lost profit by dropping prices, is actually a 43% rise in sales. So just a mere 10% discount, a mere 10% drop, has led to a huge increase in sales volume needed to retain the profit that was previously achieved. And I mean, there's a number of ways of looking at this. This in many ways points out that even at a markup of 50% or a gross profit of 33%, just a mere 10% doesn't sound that much, does it? 10% discount? Yeah, I'll give you 10% discount. Be careful, be careful. Discounting absolutely destroys profitability if you're working at tight margins. Okay, the opposite, let's look at the other side of the equation. Sales to break even if we increased our prices 10%. Well, in actual fact, how much business could we afford to lose before raising prices 10% became a bad idea? You can see the numbers here. Okay, you can't sell 7.7 units, I know, just like you couldn't sell 44.3 more the other way. But, looking at the maths, sales would have to drop by nearly a quarter before raising prices 10% was a bad idea. Now, again, nobody can predict what will happen in your business with your local conditions, the customer base that you've got, and lots of other variables like that too. But at the same time, losing 23%, losing a quarter nearly of your customers as a result of raising prices, is that really likely? And that's a decision that you have to make and decide on. And these are the actual curves that lay behind that. So you can see for different markups how the relationships work. This is to do with changes in price, percentage change in price along the horizontal axis, minus to plus, a discount to a price rise, and the associated change in volume to maintain original profitability. And, as we started off with, the minus 10% on a 50% markup, that's your 43% more volume. Whereas increasing prices 10%, that was your afford to lose 23% of your customer base. And what's really interesting about this line is how these lines diverge as markup decreases. So as your margins get tighter, as you sell at less profit, yeah, in the belief maybe that being cheap is a good thing to do because it will draw you in business, be aware of what you're doing to your volume requirements in order to maintain any sense of profitability, any reasonable sense of profitability. Another way of looking at this set of curves is to say, let's say you and a competitor in town elsewhere, maybe just down the road, it doesn't really matter, but a competitor in town are selling identical products. I know this is possibly a slightly false example, but it serves to illustrate the point. You're selling an identical product, doesn't matter what it is, a product or service, and you decide that in order to be competitive, you're going to sell at a slightly lower price than they are. Yeah, just be aware of the burden that you're taking on. Just be aware of the burden that you're taking on. So, for example, you're selling those widgets. It's an identical widget to the one that the other business is selling, but you decide to sell at 10% less. Well, in order to be as profitable, and there's some assumptions in here about volumes and so on, but for the sake of argument, in order to be as profitable as that business is, you're going to have to sell 43% more than they do. Just how likely is that? In other words, how wise is it to try and price compete with other local indies? I would suggest that it's something to be very, very seriously and carefully taken account of. We always, myself and Paul, I mean by that, whenever we're talking to customers, really suggest that price competition between independents is not a wise choice of action. It should always be about the quality of your services and products. It's all about who is the best. Yeah, it's not about who is the cheapest, it's about who is the best. There's other material that's not in this, and I'll be happy to talk to other people about why I'm thinking the way it is. Go back, I accidentally pressed a button. If you're going to price compete, then the target is the big chains, because the big chains won't respond, and also the price visibility of the things you compete on is also an awful lot higher. So it's a far better thing to do. So, putting prices up, it won't affect business like you may think. What we've gone through there is some rational thinking that's just based on pure mathematical relationships between the cost of either lowering prices and what that means in terms of volumes to retain profits, or the opposite, the cost of putting prices up and how much business you can afford to lose before that becomes a bad idea. As I said before, no one can predict or know, I certainly can't, know your local competitive position. There may be very particular circumstances as to where you are. I know a customer, for example, in Bristol, where he has a shop directly opposite him on the street. I know another customer up in Northumberland who doesn't have another business within 20 miles of him. Clearly, very different positions and very different effects on pricing, especially when the shop over the road can't get it into their head that not having a price war is a bad thing to do, but there you go. So far, so good. Remember, if anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Right, how price and sales actually work. This bit is based on some interpretation of data from the retail price comparison surveys that we've run, going back to the first one in 2012. And what we're going to talk about is a thing called price elasticity. What's price elasticity? It's the way that price varies. It's the way that sales varies with price. In other words, it's that relationship that says as you drop prices, you would expect sales volumes to increase, and as you raise prices, you would expect sales volumes to fall. Yeah, that is not meant to be, in any way, shape, or form how the relationship should work. The thinking is, the economic theory behind it says that you start off in this quadrant. As you lower prices, volumes go up, and as you raise them, prices go down. So that's all that expected means. Okay. Well, through looking at the retail price comparison information, and the sales satisfaction data that goes with the pricing information that's provided. And that's the one thing that makes our price survey particularly different than a simple price-only survey, is it captures people's satisfaction ratings of their pricing. In other words, it's rating how good their pricing is, because the typical way you'll evaluate that is by how well it sells for you. And if you've taken part in the price comparison, you'll know that's the wording used when filling out the questionnaire. How well does the item sell for you? And what we found is some interesting relationships. Based on the 2012 data, you can see the pink line there. The interesting thing that we found was how flat it is within reasonable bounds. And by reasonable bounds, I'm talking probably 5, maybe 10, 15% is probably a bit of an outlier, but certainly within these bounds of pricing around the average, there is practically no measurable difference in volume of sales. Yeah, drop your prices 5% below the average for a product or service, and it's actually going to give you absolutely no benefit in terms of increased sales. Yeah, or maybe 1%, which is immeasurable, to be honest. It's probably, well, that we know from the previous graphs we've looked at will be far outweighed by the money you've given away in the discount. By contrast, increase your prices 5% and look to drop maybe 1.5% in volume. Again, using those graphs that we've mentioned before, those curves I showed you just earlier, you're going to make money as a result. So based on, yep, it's the 2012 data only, but certainly based on that, this shows how resilient pricing is to sales volumes. Yeah? Alter your pricing marginally around the average and you'll benefit. In other words, raise your prices above the average and you'll benefit. What did we find in 2013? A slightly different curve. Why does it go the other way? There's all sorts of reasons. It's certainly a year later, competitive pressures have changed, people's pricing may well have changed as a result of what they found in 2012. But broadly speaking, if you took the averages of those two as the consequence of the two surveys, then you've got a line that's pretty much flat. Tells us again, pricing is resilient to sales increases, and that dropping prices gives you it doesn't give you any measurable benefit to achieving anything in terms of sales. Now, I don't have yet the June 2014 data plotted on here, but I know that it's slightly, well, it goes between, would you believe, it goes between the pink and the green lines. So yet further evidence. This is based on what customers will bear. That's the important thing. This isn't about perceptions. This is businesses reporting how well their sales are at different prices. In other words, what their customers will bear in the marketplace. And that's a really important point that we'll come back to later when talking about pricing. Okay, so the upshot of that is putting prices up. It doesn't affect customers like you may think. When I talk to people about raising prices, immediately what comes out of their mouth is, "Oh, I'll lose business," and no one's denying that may happen. However, we've got two pieces of information that one say, unless you believe your drops in price. Unless you believe your drop in sales volume is going to be particularly large, you're probably going to make more money as a result. And secondly, based on the retail price comparison, and you can see the resilience of pricing, price rises to differences in sales volume. That tells you that 5, possibly 10% is unlikely to have any measurable effect on volume. And even dropping prices is pretty pointless. It won't give you anything back. It's a fast way to empty your pockets. Okay, another question I ask in the workshop is, what is the purpose of price? And that's a little sort of round the room session that we do, and I just capture the outputs of that on a flip chart. And typically the responses are things like, it recovers costs. And some people will say it recovers direct costs, meaning the costs of the the goods or services that you provide. Other people sometimes mention that it recovers overheads too, and both of those are true. Other people talk about the fact it creates a profit, and that's certainly true. Interesting, other people talk about the fact that it motivates purchase, and that's always an interesting one, because typically when we talk about that, the conversation tends to revolve around the issue of a low price motivates purchase, whereas a high price doesn't. I'm going to come back and talk about that some more in a moment. Other people talk about the fact it communicates worth, and sometimes people talk about the fact it creates an impression. In other words, it's all about what your pricing says about not just your products, but about you and your business. So something quite broader. So what is the purpose of price? Well, in every buying decision, a customer, either consciously or subconsciously, is asking themselves the same question. They're in their mind weighing up, is what I am about to buy worth what I'm giving up in order to get it? Yeah. Now, typically they will, in their heads, be thinking about price, but there are other things going on too. Like, for example, well, I've gone online and I found I can get a widget, but they're out of stock and I have to wait a week to get it. Well, it's a good price, but I need it now. I'll go down the road and I'll go to my local computer shop and see if it's there. And provided the price is not too much different, I'd be happy to get it. Now, those words may not be going around in their head, but those sorts of things are going on. The same may apply about, well, you know, I'm going to go and buy something relatively inexpensive. I don't know, some ink or possibly a mouse, or I've got a problem with my computer. It's running slow.
Please enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign.
Right, we seem to have somebody else joining us at the moment. Who's that? Who's that?
To enable audio control, please enter your audio pin followed by the pound or hash sign.
I'm going to need...
If you do not have a...
Right, I've done that. I've muted everybody on the basis that I can't see who it is who's come online, and there seems to be a lot of background noise. So everyone, if you do have a question, you'll need to unmute yourselves, but please do that if you wish. The other point I was going to make is, you know, is what I'm about to buy worth what I'm giving up in order to get it? Well, I'm going to go and buy some ink. I've gone online. PC World are doing it. I don't know, just for the sake of argument, PC World are doing this ink at £12, and I know my local shop does it at 15. But the PC World is, you know, it's 10 miles away. It's 5 miles away. It's not local. It's not easy to get to. I've got to drive. I've got to get the bus. Can I be bothered? No, I can't. So I'll go to the local shop and I'll buy my ink for slightly more, because what I am about to buy is worth what I'm giving up in order to get it. Okay, so this equation is going on in people's minds. Another way to look at it is, in every buying decision, the customer is asking this question: do the benefits outweigh the cost? Yeah, because I'm looking for value. If my value in buying the ink is negative, in other words, if I went to my local shop and it was £25 instead of the £12 at PC World, for the sake of argument, then I might say, no, in actual fact, I'm going to make the journey. But if the benefits of being able to just nip round the corner, yeah, I pay a bit more, but I've got the ink, I need it, that's fine. That's value to me. Okay. Now, value or worth is a blend of different things. We've already spoken about the price, and the fact that that includes some intangibles as well that I've spoken there about, which is due to things like proximity and availability. But there are other things as well. There's the perception of how good the product or service that's being delivered is. Yeah, so it's the actual quality of the products that I am receiving, or the quality of the services that I am buying, how good they are. Yeah, and generally speaking, there's a relationship in people's minds. We'll look at this very shortly, but typically higher quality products and services in people's minds deserve and they expect to pay more for them. The last component of worth or value that justifies a price is the anticipated level of service that people will get as a result of buying it. So, for example, the easy one to think about is the difference between a Premier Inn and possibly the whatever it's called, the 7-star hotel in the likes of Abu Dhabi, and the levels of service that you would expect between the two, and the differences in the levels of service that you would expect to receive between the two, the attention, the personal service, the nature of the service that you're given would be different. You could argue for, I don't know, any of your businesses. Let's say, for example, service level could be represented by the availability of staff to receive incoming customers. So if it was a shop, your counter is always staffed. Now, this is ridiculous, but it serves to make the point. Your counter is always staffed with at least 2 members of staff who are there and will personally see end to end, however long it takes, every customer that walks in through the door. Yeah, there's a price that's going to be expected from that level of service versus, you on your own in the business can't always be at the counter. Yeah, and sometimes customers who come in may, for example, need to queue, or if you're a business-to-business customer, maybe they need to go to voicemail. And by the way, the number of businesses that I call who don't have voice messaging, don't have an answer phone, and when they do have a poor message, is surprisingly high. So yeah, if you have a voice message, make sure that it is of an appropriate level to convey the quality of the services and the type of business that you are, because that's an important thing. So value or worth is a blend of those things. And unless you can justify price in terms of the quality of the products and services that you offer and the quality of the service level that people will receive, you will be judged entirely on your prices. This was some work done by the management consultant McKinsey, who are one of the big players globally in strategy consulting. And they did some work, what they call the value equivalence line. And this is based on research. This isn't a theory. This is based on actual research. And it's all about perceived benefits versus perceived price. And they found a substantial relationship between the two. A line, a very, very tightly defined line that shows, and it's market defined, which is the interesting thing. It's not defined by the businesses themselves. It's defined by what the market will bear in terms of customers' perceived benefits versus the prices that they pay. And you'd expect, the service that you get from Bentley or Rolls is going to be different from, I don't know, the service that you get from a cheaper car manufacturer. Yeah. And this doesn't just apply to value to brands. It also applies to products, individual products and services. And what's interesting, as I go back to, is how tightly their research found this line to be, because it's all defined by the marketplace. In other words, it may be a smart idea to think, well, actual fact, I'll play down here. Yeah, I'll play in this space in my market. I'll give more benefit at a lower price and I'll attract business. That isn't easy, because this line has already been defined by what customers expect to pay. It's already been pushed down as far as it can be, reasonably be, by customers and what they are prepared to pay for the services and quality of products that they get. So playing down here, people will be suspicious. Yeah, what you're giving me, it's a bit cheap. Yeah, I'm getting a Rolls, and you're claiming to be able to give me all that product and service for the same price as the Skoda. No, it doesn't work, does it? And by the same token, You know, if you start thinking, well, in actual fact, I'm going to be clever. I'm going to be clever and pay above the line. I'm going to offer less benefits at a higher price. Well, the market will cane you for that. Yeah, no, we're not paying that. It's too expensive for what you're giving. This is the place to be. Now that's interesting. Again, yeah, it's all about our customers prepared to pay. Is what I'm about to buy worth what I'm giving up in order to get it? Now, if you look at, come to life, if you look at our dear old friend, Currys and PC World, yeah, we'll treat them. It could be any business, but I use the big chains as the example because they're the ones with most visibility in customers' minds. Yeah, because they do the likes of TV advertising, for the sake of argument. So they're filling people's heads, right or wrong, they're filling people's heads with all this information that effectively says this is what these products should cost. Now, when I ask people, well, this question, where are you priced compared to Currys PC World? The answer I get is, oh, I'm cheaper than Currys PC World. I have to be in order to attract customers and other reasons like that. All I would say in answer to that, and is something to really, really think about, is this very point, which is, well, are you better than Currys PC World or worse? And the answer is always, without fail, we are better than Currys PC World. In other words, if you're better, you should at least cost the same, if not more. Now, there's many reasons why that might be a difficult thing to achieve. Yeah, there's many reasons why that might be a difficult thing to achieve, but you really need to understand, that if you are cheaper than PC World, because that's the way that you are getting hold, you believe you're getting hold of customers, then what it's saying is effectively you've been unable to convince customers that you are actually better, that these things in here around the quality of the products and services that you offer and the nature of that service that you give, yeah, you'll go the extra mile and all of those good things, and I'm not denying that any of you doesn't do that. Not at all. The issue is that customers don't get it. Customers don't understand it. They can't see it. They can't place any value on it. It's in your head and not in theirs. Okay, so this is where you need to focus in order to justify pricing and what you should be charging. Hang on, I can't operate my own device here. Here we go. So, that's interesting. How do I get rid of that? I don't know. Let's have a look here. Erase all drawings. Try that. Okay. Fine, let's get back to the presentation. Yeah, if you're cheaper than PC World, you're effectively saying you're worse than PC World because customers perceive you as worth less. And, you know, I don't say these words in any way to be scornful or to laugh or jest or any other reason other than to please understand what you're doing by playing cheap. Yeah, please understand what you're doing by playing cheap. Are you actually servicing and being successful in business? Yeah, serving a market that would possibly go to PC World or to a competitor, or are you actually playing in a market that is just simply looking for work to be done on the cheap? Yeah, that's the reality. That's the reality. Now, that's all very well. And you're thinking, well, yeah, that's great, John. Thank you very much. What can I do about it? Well, let's take a look at some of the things in a moment. I forgot my own slides. So what you find is the purpose of price really, in actual fact, is not the kinds of things, or doesn't start with the kinds of things that people typically mention. It's all about this impression. It's creating an impression, and it's providing the basis to justify what you're charging. It creates an impression of the worth of your offer. It creates an impression of you and the customer service. Okay, so this is the service level side of it that you offer. how attentive you are, how personal you are, all those sorts of things that you do. And it motivates purchase not based on the fact of being cheap, but on the fact that people believe they are getting genuine value. Yeah. It then, as a consequence, does these two things: recovers your costs, and if you're lucky, and hopefully you are, leaves you a profit. Now, why do I say those things like that? Because it all goes back to what will the market bear? Yeah, there are times, and we all know the case, typically with the likes of headliner products that you see advertised on PC World, it's difficult, if not darn impossible, to make money selling new computer equipment, new laptops for the sake of argument. There's hardly any margin in it. Okay. What that means is that whenever you do have an opportunity to make a profit, to make a decent level of margin, and I'm never suggesting profiteering, I'm just suggesting making reasonable profits, that you have to take the opportunity to do that when the opportunity presents itself. So this whole business of, again, when I talk to customers, more than I would like, would say, well, I price at what I think it's worth. You're not pricing according to what the market will bear. So in other words, what I think is worth could be too much. It pretty much is never the case. It's usually too little. Yeah. So people are denying themselves reasonable profits. It's all about what the market will bear. Okay. How on earth can you do that? You need to put your prices up. You're worth it, but how can you prove that you are? Well, here's some thoughts. Here's some examples about that. Now, this is taken from, this is a shot from a store in Redcar. Gary at Jeepers. Are you still on slide 23? No, I'm on slide 26, Matt. So can everybody see slide 26? I'm going to open it up. Right, everyone's online. Can you see slide?
No, I'm still on
23. Okay.
23 too.
Right, okay. Just bear with me. I've taken the screen off. And now I'm resharing the screen. Has that now gone to slide 26?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That must have been something to do with me doing that. Me failing at doing the drawing. So there we go. I'm not going to do that again in a hurry. Right. I've muted everyone again. Like before, please, if you want to ask a question, just unmute yourself and chip in. Okay. So hopefully now everyone can see this nice, colourful picture from the inside of Gary's shop up in Redcar. And we're talking here about how do you justify your price? How do you justify the price that you're charging? Now, there's a number of things going on here, remembering that price is a function of three things. The price you charge is a function of three things. Yeah. This is a direct price play. And what Gary's done right in his shop, and he's entirely justified to do this, is he's pointed out the price of his local competition. And this would be particularly relevant for an item that people would consider perhaps going to Sainsbury's or Asda to buy. Yeah, a data stick. Yeah, I can imagine going to Sainsbury's and buying that, whereas a motherboard, I probably wouldn't. So if this was motherboards, this is probably not relevant. But where people would perceive these as relevant buying destinations, then this makes sense to do. So he's immediately pointed out a price advantage. Okay, but not only has he done that, and not only has he said that this is good value, he's look at the presentation. Now, I know this is a close-up shot, but the larger shot continues this. This is all nicely packaged goods presented in a professional manner. In other words, the quality of the product, justifies the price, and the quality of the presentation, the service level, in terms of how it's presented in the shop, also helps bolster the price. For me, if I'd have been setting this, to be honest with you, I would have at least started my price at £17, because I believe there's room in here to play somewhere between the two. Asda, I don't know how local it is. It must be a local shop somewhere. He could easily price, to be honest with you, £18 based on simple plain convenience. If people walk into your shop, they want to buy. If people call you, they're looking to buy. Yeah, they're not in the game of spending all day wandering around all the computer shops to find out prices. They're not in the game of calling up every single computer support provider to find out prices. Ideally, they want to hit the gold seam. They want to hit the right place as soon as they can. So there's a pricing issue here. I would have gone higher. He hasn't. He's happy. He's still making very good margin on these. And that's up to him. That's up to his business. That's up to his locality. So that's one way of thinking about justifying the prices that you charge, defending yourself against objections. Other ways of doing this, if you have qualifications in any way, shape or form, I've used the refurbisher logo here. You may have CompTIA certifications and certificates. You may have, other IT related. You may have general qualifications. You may have a degree. You may have all sorts of things. These are all other ways of convincing customers, that your prices are worth what you are charging. So if you've got any kind of badges at all that you can put into things like email footers, that you can put onto any materials that you might produce, any invoices that you may have, anything like that at all, you should put them on. Yeah, it's not just about the direct competence that they imply. Yeah, if you're a Microsoft authorized refurbisher, you're probably pretty good at lots of other things too, not just that. So these things speak volumes about you and the quality of the service level and probably the implied quality of the products and services as well that you would offer. Another angle on this, you could simply have, this is just a piece of artwork I've put up that you might have on a website, or you may have as a poster in a shop window or on your wall or on a counter or something like that. You could so easily just have put computer slow health check just £50. But hang on a minute, £50? Well, I certainly know of businesses that are cheaper than that. So £50, a customer may be thinking, well, that's a bit steep. Well, in this piece of marketing, what you've done is start to justify the quality of the product being a service, a PC health check. You've started to justify it by pointing out that it's a 20-point expert check. Now, you as technical experts may think, oh, this is laughable. But the average member of the public hasn't got a clue what you do when you speed up their computer. Yeah, it's a bit like getting your car serviced. How do you actually know anything's been done? How do you know anything's been done? And that's why some garages will show you the parts. They'll talk to you about the work that's been done, the problems they had, the things that they found, what was good, what wasn't so good. They'll go into the detail. But a piece of marketing like this is a start of a conversation. It's justifying why your price is, in this case, £50. Another angle on that is, this is the diagnostic check sheet that goes with that. This is a real example. This is taken from a business over in Aintree, near to Liverpool. And this serves a number of purposes. One, that customer walks in and says, I'm looking to, my computer's slow, can you speed it up? And rather just saying, yeah, we can, yeah, no problem at all, we do a health check, it's £50, yeah, and leaving the customer to judge whether the £50 is worth it or not based on that. You say, yes, our health check, and you whip one of these out, pop it on the counter. Yes, our health check, we do 20 different standard checks. This is our standard check. We run through these different things. Now, yes, I know some customers may be very, very interested in the content of this. Others may just go, oh, right, that's fine, and glaze over a bit. But what you have done, yet again, is evidence the fact that your prices are what they are and what the £50 is actually buying. So this can be regarded as a sales prop. In other words, something that convinces a customer to purchase, but clearly it's also an important piece to hand over at the end of the job with the customer and talk to them about the work that was completed when you did the work. Other things to justify price. This is a real example from a business in Mansfield called PC Medic. It's a scan I took of his little roll fold that he put together, and it's a bit dated in as much as it was all around the time of Windows 8 and when it came out, and oh my god, didn't everybody hate that start screen, and wasn't it difficult to use and all the rest of it. Well, Steve Bishop at PC Medic had an idea, and he produced, just using Publisher I think it was, and printing them out on his home computer, double-sided, folding them up on a piece of A4 in his office, to create this simple guide. And all he did was basically wander around Windows 8 and find out lots of information that was already in Windows 8 and how to use it, and he put it on a handout. What was interesting about this was, as he started to hand them out, he suddenly found that people were coming into the shop to talk to him and ask for copies of this. Now what he's done, again, I mean, his details are all here, but going back and thinking about being able to justify your price and those three components of what constitutes value, this is all around service level. This is justifying the fact that when people come to you, you know your stuff. You have shown them that you know your stuff. Yeah. Now, yes, this is quite different to the stuff you really know, which is how to get inside and how to change screens and boards and upgrades and remove viruses and so on, which a lot of customers would not appreciate. This is talking to them in terms that they understand, and it's showing them that you can talk to them in terms they understand in a way that shows that you're easy to deal with. Again, this is about service level and the type of service they would expect. And it speaks as well indirectly to the quality of what they get should they employ your services or your shop to or business to provide them with products and services. So again, it's another component of proving your value. This is another example from Grantham Computers, and it's all about extended warranties. Now, you know, the numbers are what they are. But what I'd ask you to do is, rather than concentrate on the numbers themselves, think about the message. Think about the message that this communicates to customers. Think about whether or not it matters how many of these you sell directly, or whether having these helps you sell computers per se, in this instance computers. Because if you think about it, you know, you're going to warranty, I don't know, for the sake of argument, for 5 years, I can walk back into your shop with a grand's worth of problems and you will fix them all for 140 quid. Well, that tells me something about the fact that the equipment that you're going to sell me is probably pretty damn reliable. Yeah. In other words, it speaks volumes about the quality, again, of the products and services that you have on offer and the service level that you provide. So actually having an extended warranty program may bring you in directly relatively little by way of direct revenue. But what it will do is show customers that, yeah, if your pricing is reasonable, and this sort of ratio of 140 to 1,000 is quite reasonable, yeah, you're not going to want to replace or repair equipment at your expense, are you? Absolutely not. So in actual fact, well, I don't need to buy this. I don't need to buy this. This has validated in my mind that what you're selling me is good quality. So think about that when thinking about extended warranties. Have many conversations with customers about the warranty numbers directly. And certainly if you're looking to sell extended warranties per se, yes, that's something to be considered. Absolutely. But there's a much bigger message that these send about the quality of your service levels and the implied quality of the products that you are offering. Yeah. So this is another way of justifying value. Other ways of doing justifying value. I talk a lot to customers about this whole issue of, we'll call it training. It sounds a bit grand. All we're talking about is things like basic talks, or even maybe producing a little A4 single-sided piece of paper that shows how to do some of these different things. Simple tips and tricks that customers can do to help themselves, which you might deliver. And I know customers that run self-help groups in coffee shops. Yeah. I also know the likes of Steve Bishop up in Mansfield and what he does in terms of his Windows 8 guide. Both are effectively training. They're just going about it in different ways. And I've also mentioned here, ask in store for details, but one-to-one tuition is also available. Now that, I would suggest, is where you might get into actually selling your services from the point of view of helping people use their equipment more effectively. And typically, that's probably going to relate to how they use things like Office or applications in particular. So it might be Office, it might be Gmail, it might be all of those kinds of things, which may be a bit off the beaten track for what you typically do. But nevertheless, there's a big market for that kind of thing, and it does pay well. But that's a different service to this. I would start with this and work your way up to this sort of thing. But anyway, this is all about, again, justifying price on the basis of service level. Okay, we're coming up to the hour. I will continue. If people need to drop out, then please feel free to go ahead. It's absolutely fine. As I said at the beginning, this is being recorded, and it will be going up onto the ShopTalk YouTube page as soon as I reasonably can, in other words, at some point today, so that you can pick it up and carry on with it. But yeah, the summary of putting prices up. It's okay to put prices up because it's not going to affect business like you may think. Remember, we looked at the relationship between break-even profits versus price changes and sales, and how those curves move, and just how much business you have to lose before a price rise becomes a bad idea, or how much business you need to bring in before lowering prices becomes a good idea. And typically lowering prices, the curves are much steeper on the discount side, interestingly, than they are on the price rises side. And the fact that it probably won't affect customers like you may think, based on the retail price comparison, which is all about information and data that shows you what the market will bear for the products and services that you offer. Yeah, it's unlikely to affect customers like you may think. We saw within reasonable bounds, certainly within plus or minus 5% of the average prices from the survey, and maybe up to as much as 10, possibly 15%, that the changes in volumes with price change are nowhere near, are nothing like what businesses tend to think they are. They are pretty much flat. And you have to put prices up. You are worth it. You are all hobbyists or experts in your field. You've all gone into this business not because it's getting a job at a PC World. You've gone into this business because you love what you do, you like what you do, which makes you extremely interested in what you do, highly knowledgeable experts in your field. You are worth the money you charge. The issue is you have to stop confusing customers. You have to get better at showing them you're worth the money that you are, the prices that you're charging, and we've gone through some examples of how you can do that, all of which are based on customer examples. And if anybody wants to talk about applying them in their business or has got other ideas, as I said at the beginning, I'm happy, more than happy to help any of you. Come and visit you, talk to you, do some work with you, even if it's just a 5-minute call on the phone or we work over whatever period. More than happy to do that. And you have to stop denying yourself reasonable profits. Yeah, we're not talking about profiteering, but every % increase in your price is a % increase in your profitability. Yeah, your costs won't change. It's all about profit. So that's putting prices up. I think I'll pick up the pace a bit because that's taken a little bit longer than I anticipated. This is based on a workshop that does run for about 4 hours. I did try and cut it down, but there we go. Defining a customer complaint. We're moving on to this whole area of making customers unhappy. And remember, this is all about not literally making them unhappy and providing them with bad services and poor products. It's all about the issue of making them unhappy because they have to think about how you can get better. A customer complaint is, this is a definition, an expression of dissatisfaction on a consumer's half to a responsible party. Yeah. I bought my laptop in, it was running slow, you said you'd speed it up. Well, I've had it a week and it's no better than it was. Yeah, all the way through to things like, that's expensive. You're the owner, aren't you? Why are you charging so much for this? Yeah, it could be anything like that, but it's an actual expression of dissatisfaction on a consumer's behalf to a responsible party. Defined by a guy called Landon, who works for an American university back in 1980 for the US Association of Consumer Research. Well, two things on that. One, in 1980, that must be out of date. Well, is it? I don't think so. You know, people complain like always. If anything, they complain more because it's got people have become more used to doing it. But it's still an expression of dissatisfaction. And somebody else in a workshop interestingly said, "Oh well, yeah, but that's an American definition. You know how different they are on things." And I looked at this guy and I can remember thinking, "What? How would we make that more British?" I don't know that we can. I think the only difference between the US and Britain is possibly a higher expectation of service and therefore a greater level of expressions of dissatisfaction than possibly in the UK, though I think we're possibly starting to catch up. So that's a customer complaint. What sorts of things can cause dissatisfaction? Well, again, this is one of the exercises we run around the room and I capture things. But things like not keeping customers informed on a job. You know, the customer calls and says, have you finished the PC health check? Oh, yes, it was finished the day before yesterday. Oh, well, I wish you told me. I wanted to use my computer. Not too happy about that. Price can cause dissatisfaction. Yeah, when people come in and price object. But interestingly, and it's been pointed out before, how price objections are handled can also attract dissatisfaction. Because again, if you can go back to and explain why your price is set at the level it is, rather than think, oh God, well, I only guessed the price anyway on what I thought was reasonable, then you're going to have a hard job. If you can think about your price and you've positioned it saying, well, in actual fact, my price is fair and reasonable compared to local independents in my area. I'm no more expensive or I'm not the cheapest within the range. My price is fair. Then that's as good as you can reasonably expect to be. But at least you'd be able to explain that process that you'd been to, and you would demonstrate at the same time, going back to how using words communicates value, you would communicate and show that customer that you are price conscious and that there's nothing that customer should fear or worry about you trying to profiteer. Now, whether that's literally true or not may be a different issue. However, being out of stock. Yep. Oh, I've popped round. I wanted the ink. You haven't got it. Damn. Yeah. There's an obvious one. Product or service quality. Yep. You sold me that mouse. I've only used it 3 times. The bloody clicker's broken. Or the quality of service. Going back to the first one there about the PC health check. Yeah. You know, you said you were going to remove viruses. Well, I've still got the same problems that I've got before. Now, you may have removed all the viruses. The issue is the customer can't see any difference. Misleading advice. Yeah, you tell a customer to do something or take a particular course of action. They believe you told them something wrong. And we're going to talk about that later on as well. Or confusing marketing. The big chains are good at this. There was some, the Competition Commission, I think it was, just recently got involved with bringing some of the major supermarkets to bear over confusing offers and offers that weren't offers. The multi-pack buys that were in actual fact more expensive than the buying things individually. And indeed, I've come across that myself in my local co-op, would you believe, for things like Kit Kats. But there we are. So all sorts of things can cause dissatisfaction. The issue with whether or not the customer is dissatisfied is it's not up to you to decide whether they are or not. They decide whether they're dissatisfied. The issue is you may not know that they are. So reality versus perception. It doesn't matter whether you've actually disappointed a customer or not. Yeah, all that matters is that they think you have. So your judge of how good you are, based on what you think about how well every interaction goes with every customer, be it over the phone, on site with them, or in your shop. Yeah, it's a start. No one's denying it's a start, but it is not reliable. And we'll talk about that more shortly. Why do customers stay silent? It's the old stuff, isn't it? Complaining is, well, it's a bit awkward. It's a bit unpleasant. It's, well, I'm going to have to call you to account for something that you've done. And I'm not really comfortable in doing that. It's a bit unpleasant. It could be difficult. Well, I want to talk to you about the fact that you didn't call me. There I am standing in your shop. There's customers all around me. I'm thinking, I want to talk to you about the fact that you didn't tell me that my computer was ready on time, but all these people are standing around and I'm not finding it easy to do. It's not easy for me to do. Or you may have some kind of, well, you don't have a procedure in place that allows people to complain more formally. It's pointless. I know, Dean has gone. I know, for example, you're a nice enough guy, you're a good business, but when I've mentioned things to you before, nothing's really happened. And all right, it's never been anything that's so bad that I go away, but I know that it's unlikely to have any effect. Or if I do, I don't know how you're going to respond. It's risky. You may do or say something that offends me, I don't like, so I'm not going to bother. So there are many reasons why customers don't say anything and defer from actually voicing complaints. So you have to make customers unhappy. You have to find ways to make them tell you they are or not, because you are no judge. You can't actually tell if they are. I am going to do a quick quiz. I'll run through this quite fast. It's based on research from the likes of Bain & Company, which is another big management consultancy, the US Department for Consumer Research, and also Oracle, which is the big systems provider, and research that they've done for their customer services systems. Now, I'm not going to ask you to answer online, but if you've got a pen and paper, you might want to jot down some answers here. So what proportion of people agree smaller companies place greater emphasis on customer service than large? 80%, 50, or 20? What proportion of buying experience is based on how the customer feels they are being treated? Okay, buying experience, what proportion of it is based on how customers feel they are being treated? 30, 50, or 70%? This is an interesting one. For every customer that complains, how many remain silent? Is it 26, 42, or 13? It takes how many positive experience to make up for one negative? 2, 12, or 15? Companies, what proportion of companies, I should say they deliver superior customer service? Is it 60%, 50%, or 80%? And what proportion of people think these same companies deliver superior customer service? 75%, 8%, or 50%? We're nearly there. What proportion of customers will stop using you? That is a will stop using you, which is an interesting one. This is the Oracle data, would you believe? If they have a poor customer experience. 33%, 50%, or 82%? A customer is how many times more likely to buy from a competitor if the problem is experience related versus product or price related? How many times more likely is a customer to buy from a competitor if the problem is experience related versus price or product related? So it's relative to the two. Is it 2 times as much, 4 times as much, or 8 times as much more likely? What proportion of customers will pay more for a good experience, 30, 50, or 80? And lastly, what proportion of customers will make an additional purchase as a result of having a good customer experience? Now, as you can see, this is used in the workshop and people score themselves. And then we go through the answers, which is what we're going to do here as well. So very quickly, here they are. The proportion of people who agree smaller companies place greater emphasis on customer service than large is 80%. So pretty high. The proportion of buying experience that's based on how customers feel they are being treated is 70%. The overwhelming majority of how customers perceive you is based on how customers feel they are being treated. Yeah, not how good a job you've done, not whether you've got it in stock. It's how they are being treated. It's very touchy-feely. If a customer complains, how many remain silent? 26. It's quite a surprise. It takes how many positive experience to make up for one negative? It's 12. So that's a lot of work to get over a problem. The proportion of companies that say they deliver superior service, perhaps not surprisingly, 80%. Now, I don't think that's through people being smug. I think that's generally due to different expectations and different definitions of what great customer service means. And the proportion of people who think those same companies deliver that service, just 8%. So an enormous difference in perceptions. The proportion of customers who will stop using you if they have a poor customer experience is the top end. 82% won't give you a second chance. A customer is how many times more likely to buy from a competitor if the problem is experience related versus price or product related? It is 4 times as much. Yeah, you should be getting the message that customer experience really, really matters. The proportion of customers that will pay for a good experience, 80%. And the proportion of customers who will make an additional purchase as a result of a good experience, 40%. So this plays right back into what I was talking about in terms of the definition of value. Yeah, the third component, the level of service that they feel they are receiving. Yeah, the quality that is evident in the products and services that you provide. If they can see it, if they get it. Remember that point I made about, yes, you may all think you're better, you are all better, but customers don't get it because you have to price low in order to be able to attract them. Yeah, that really plays into it. So where does this take us? I've got some conclusions that I'll run through. People have high expectations of you. You're a small business. They come to you because they expect a higher level of service. And that means they're already primed. They're more likely to be dissatisfied because they're expecting higher things to start with. Their perception of experience is based on their feelings. I think we've been through that pretty solidly. Complaints, yeah, is not a measure. It's not anywhere near a measure of how good you are. Yeah, oh, I never receive a customer complaint. Does not mean you're any good at all. How many people are suffering in silence? Well, we know the ratio that says, for every complaint you hear, there's 26 who are suffering. Well, that could be that you haven't yet got to a complaint, so your 25 people are pretty unhappy at any one time with what you might have said or done. It's genuinely unlikely you're as good as you think. Yeah, confirmation bias is a statistical term and a psychological issue that we all suffer from. Yeah, it's very difficult, and it is something that's inherent in all pieces of genuine research and something that people try and eradicate through that research, because people always want to find what matches with their expectations of how the world should be. Yeah, the results they want. You want to be good, therefore you'll think you are. Yeah, and all the evidence that you see around you, you will perceive as supporting that. And that's I'm not pointing that out to criticize. It's inherent in all of us, these sorts of things, but it's also inherent in some of the data. Point 3, again, for every customer that complains, 26 remain silent. Well, I've never received a customer complaint, still doesn't mean you're any good. 5 and 6 were all about the differences between perceptions between what people think how good their service is and how customers would rate them separately, and that massive gap that exists between the 80 and the 8. And it doesn't really matter if those numbers are precise. All I would just point out is the huge gulf that exists between the two. And even if it was 40 or 50%, that's still large. Poor experience loses customers. Yeah, 12 times. Do you have to have 12 positive experience to make up for a bad? Question 7 was all about 82% of customers will leave you if they have a bad experience. The overwhelming majority will leave you And a customer is 4 times more likely to leave you if they have a poor experience than a product-related problem. So it's really important. But if you do the opposite, if you validate and support and confirm that the prices you're charging are right because you are providing a great experience, they will pay for those things and they'll buy more. So make customers unhappy. You have to understand how good they feel. It trumps how good you are. So none of this means you can now suddenly do bad work, and I wasn't trying to suggest that. You still have to do all the great things that you are doing, but you do need to get a grip on understanding how they perceive, they feel with what you're doing for them. And the price of dissatisfaction, can it actually be calculated? Well, we've got some bits of facts and data that help us get to the bottom of this. That first point there was one of the pieces of data that was in the questionnaire. For each complaint, 26 people are dissatisfied. 82% of customers defect from a poor experience. A piece of information I haven't yet told you, but we'll use it when we're working out this calculation. 79% of those 82% will tell others. Of those, 13% of that 79% will tell more than 20 people. The remaining 87% will tell 5 to 15 people. What does that mean? Well, you know, there are many ways of estimating the price of dissatisfaction. There are all kinds of figures around, but this gives us a way of looking at it and just thinking about the consequences. So if you take that first point, the calculation there, 1 complaint, 26 dissatisfied, that's 27 dissatisfied people. We know that 82% of them will stop using you if they have a poor experience. So that's 22 people. Let's say you persuade even the complainant to stay, all right, that's still 21% of people will start shopping elsewhere. 79% of those will tell others, so 79 of the 22 is 17. So for every complaint you hear, 17 people are talking about you to others. Of those who do tell, 13% will tell more than 20. So 13 times 17 is 2. That's 40 people will be hearing poor stories about you. And of the remaining 87%, they tell between 5 and 15. That's an average of 12. So you can do the maths. That's 168 people. So if you put all that together, and okay, we're making some extreme assumptions here. For every complaint you hear, 208 people are hearing about how bad you are from customers dissatisfied with the experience you gave them. Or another way of looking at it is 230 people either stop using you or never try. Yeah, 22 to go disgruntled in the first place, but 208 never even show up because of what they've been told. Now, we've made some assumptions there about overlaps and so on. And indeed, this doesn't include the possible impact of things like social media. But it really does bring into sharp focus that the price of dissatisfaction is truly monumental. And have you ever heard this expression, the customer is always right? Can you see one of the reasons why that phrase has come into being? So, make customers unhappy. You need to understand where their dissatisfactions are, because the price of it is genuinely huge. Now, of course, the issue is how do you get hold of that? Well, start again. How do you get hold of it? But more importantly, how worth is it to do? How worth is it to do? That's not very good, but anyway. This is research from Watermark Consulting based on Forrester, who are a big US marketing research business. This is some work that they've done looking at the relative performance of CX, which is just slang for customer experience, of how people who are leaders in understanding and improving customer experience compare to other businesses. Okay, and it's the difference in the return on equity, the return on their investments in their business. And you know, this is what it is. Most businesses are interested in trying to get better. Yeah, so naturally those businesses will improve their performance. But look at these guys here. Look at these guys here. There's what, a 29%, roughly 28.5% difference between the two. So becoming genuinely customer-centric really does add value. The issue is that, whilst you might say that you are customer-centric, the only way to genuinely be customer-centric is if customers see the evidence that you are trying to be. In other words, you're doing something that makes customers understand that you are taking notice of them and how they feel about the services that you provide them. Ways that you can do that, up front. So, on your website, possibly on the left-hand side there, it's just a piece of artwork I've put together, satisfaction guaranteed, our promise, ask in store. That could be give us a call, drop us an email, something like that. And all that might mean is that people call you and you talk through how you guarantee customer satisfaction. You could go one stage further. You could do something like publishing a customer charter, which again you can post on a website or have as a poster in your shop, on your counter, wherever you like. A customer charter basically points out your standards of customer service. So again, when thinking about the value of the prices that you charge, this is another angle on justifying why your prices are what they are. But certainly at the bottom here, this one's important. If you have a complaint about us and what we've done, what we've sold you, please raise it at the earliest opportunity. We take all complaints genuinely and seriously, and we'll do everything we reasonably can do to resolve issues to your satisfaction. So you've opened the door. These things show that you are open to hearing about dissatisfaction, which is a start. Remember why customers don't complain, why they remain silent. Oh, it's a bit unpleasant, it's a bit difficult, I'm not sure how you'll respond. Well, this is saying, no, we want to hear. Don't feel you can't tell us. Now, I'm not going to suggest that this is going to elicit every single complaint, but it's certainly setting the right tone and starting the kind of interaction, the conversation, as you might call it, with customers along the right lines. And it's being done before the sale so that when they do come in, they perceive you as being better value, and therefore you're more likely to be able to sell to them. Survey customers for opinion. Now you can do this in all kinds of ways. Here's an example of a customer survey. If anyone's interested, I can certainly send out this or any of the other items to you. It's a basic survey that you could email customers, you could put on your website and email a link to customers, or you could hand out to customers after they've made a purchase from you. But thinking about the framework of this instant profit, this is all about making money from the next customer you meet. So you do this up front. We'd like to know what you can think about us so that we can better help you. And this survey's got 8 questions in it, which isn't too long. You might say, well, do you really need to ask all of those? You can probably boil it down to a lower number of things. I think the things to take account of are mainly, did we meet your expectations and would you recommend us? Those are probably the 2 main things that you want to find out. But there may be other things that you want to find out as well. For example, if you wouldn't recommend us, why not? Yeah. Have you bought other products and services? If you bought them elsewhere, so where did you buy them? If you bought them elsewhere, why? Yeah. So this is trying to elicit some more information. You never want to make these things too long, because the longer you make them, the more difficult you make them. And remember, that's another barrier to gaining the feedback. But 8 questions isn't unreasonable. 5 would be better, perhaps, but there we go. That's an example of a customer survey. And on a scale of 0 to 10, how do you rate us? And lastly, you always offer people the chance to do these things anonymously. Yeah, it would really help us if we could talk about the survey. So if you want to provide us with your name and contact details, then you can do it here. And if you do approach things this way, please be aware that people giving you their details is kind of asking you to call them. So if you collect the information, you should follow it up. But if you do, you'll do huge benefits to your reputation with those customers, and you'll gain a lot more insight into the answers that they've given you, because you'll be able to have the conversation. And then some simple stuff here to return, whatever's easiest for you. Pop it through our letterbox, come in and leave it. I've assumed this is a paper-based example that you've handed out to people. Send it in by post, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's an example of a customer survey, which you can send out up front. But in doing so, you're preconditioning people before they come in for their next purchase. Yeah, you're preconditioning people. You are warming them to you and the prices of the goods and services that you sell them, because you are justifying, you are increasing the value of your customer service level. By doing this very action of surveying customers, you are showing you care more. It's actual evidence in customer terms that you do care about them. And yeah, here's some words. You know, can I buy a budget mouse? There you go, £5. Thank you very much. That shouldn't be the end of the conversation. And certainly I know many people that say, is there anything else I can do for you? No, thanks. Okay, see you next time. Yeah, there is one more question. I would counsel you to always try and ask everybody that you speak to. Yeah, has everything been to your satisfaction? Again, all you're doing is setting the tone that you're open to receiving feedback. Yeah, that's what this is about. Yeah, most people will probably not tell you anything the first time that you do this. Yeah, if you keep doing it and constantly in everything you're doing, and if you had, for example, the satisfaction artwork up in your shop or on your website, and you also had the customer charter available, yeah, and you also start asking customers every time you see them or talk to them, you know, okay, thanks very much, the invoice is in the post, has everything been to your satisfaction? It's a simple thing to do, it's a quick thing to say, it's courteous, it's polite, it's opening the door to people giving you feedback. It's showing that you're interested in knowing. So these are words I would strongly suggest you consider working out how you can say in every time you conclude with a customer, on the phone or directly face to face. Work out your own way of saying this, but make it clear. Okay, because it goes back to that point around customers need to know what you're trying to do. And this is how you communicate that you are interested in their satisfaction. Yeah, you have to use the words. So get in the habit of asking everybody every time. Other things you might ask is, after, is there anything else I can do for you? And these are just examples. I'm not saying, you have to use them. Is there anything else I can do for you? No, thanks. Okay, did we live up to your expectations? Is there anything else I can do for you? Could you let me know? Would you recommend us? That's an interesting one. Perhaps a little bit too far, you might think, but nevertheless, there may be customers that you've got a stronger relationship with that you could ask that question. How did our service compare with your ideal would be another way of coming at things. So is there anything else I can do for you? Okay, overall, how satisfied have you been with the service we provided? Yeah. Anything else I can do for you? Will you use this again? So there are all kinds of ways you can drop this into conversation. Even I'm just popping a copy of my customer service survey into your bag. It's got 3 questions, 5 questions, 8 questions, whatever it is. It takes just a moment to complete. You could use that example. And takes a moment. Oops, you can tell I was writing these slides quickly. But you're giving people the chance to make their feedback clear. And it may be that they never actually complete the survey, that what this does is further down the line, because every time you serve them, you pop a copy of your survey in their bag. They actually start talking to you directly about their experience and how they think it could be made better. So making customers unhappy, the summary, it's okay to, because they want the reassurance that you care. They do. It makes them genuinely happy to know. You can't tell how happy they are. Remember all this suffering in silence? Why customers don't complain? Why customers don't voice their dissatisfaction? It's unpleasant, difficult, risky. It's just generally not something that people like doing. The best, all the evidence points to, the best, those that are making the most of their businesses are making a point of actually trying to find out. It doesn't mean you have to survey every single customer. It just means you have to start asking the questions and opening the door bit by bit. You have to be the only person who hears. Remember those figures that we calculated, dissatisfaction cost and the size of it, how big it was. Well, don't assuage the tendency for those people to want to talk to each other by making it open so that if they do have a problem, they talk to you about it. They vent their steam and they're left feeling better so that when they're away from the business, they'd have no reason to perhaps mention you badly. In actual fact, it's often said, isn't it, that The greatest critics can be your greatest zealots if you turn them round. You have to, it's their feelings, not your technical skills that matter. I'm not saying that you should be in any way looking to cut corners on the work that you do. Absolutely not. Your technical skills, of course, matter. But as far as a customer is concerned, it's how you treat them that counts. Getting this right really substantiates your prices, and the feedback you get makes every change to your business count. So no longer are you kind of guessing what you should improve and what you shouldn't in your business. You get direct feedback. So every time you actually do something, you know it's going to have an impact, a positive impact, rather than actually hoping it will. Okay, so that was that section. I'm just going to check. Oh, there's still a large number of people with me, my word. Okay, how are we doing? Oh, we're an hour and a half in. Okay, this is the last section, and this is talking customers into buying, as it's called. Is this a fair definition? John, unfortunately, I'm going to have to dash. And provide some good customer service. Yep, well, thank you for coming along. As I mentioned, this will be on YouTube, and if you want to talk more about it, you know where I am. Please don't hesitate to give me a call. And hopefully we'll see you at the open day. Is this a fair definition of selling, convincing people to buy stuff they might not want? I think we'd all probably agree that it may not be entirely wrong, let's say, and a lot of sales training will talk about this whole issue of persuading and convincing people about making purchases. But that's much more in the school of the hard seller. And I don't think either you would be comfortable being in that school. And I also think it's entirely the wrong selling style given the nature of the products and services that you sell. They are complex products and services that you sell that may involve quite a lot of explanation to customers, and therefore just trying to ram them down people's throats is going to be the wrong thing, because people will naturally think you're trying to pull the wool over their eyes. They don't understand your 50-point health check. They don't understand why the mouse that you're pushing is so much better than the cheaper one on the shelf, or whatever it is. Yeah, far better, I would suggest, that this is a much better way of thinking and perceiving about how you sell to customers. It's about helping people choose what's right for them. So this is fundamentally about presenting people with options and guiding them through making choices. Customers prefer to choose. How does your experience leave customers feeling? Okay, we're going to do a little exercise in here. Again, this is another one of the things that we do in the workshop, and it's all about people. How can you increase satisfaction with customers? I'm going to use a little model I've pulled together to think about it. It's got two dimensions to it. One is about whether they purchase or not, and the other is about whether they have a good or bad experience. And we'll treat this, I know it's got 4 quadrants, but I'll use the word binary in terms of either they buy or they don't, and either you provide them with a good or a bad experience. And certainly when it comes to purchase, well, you can't have what they purchased sort of. But certainly when it comes to experience, you could say, well, they had an okay experience. Let's put that to one side and just think about whether experiences are perceived as good or bad. There's words you can use to express what's in each of those quadrants. Now, if we looked at the top right-hand corner, customer comes in, makes a purchase of a product or sale, calls you up, makes a purchase of a product or sale, and finds the whole experience something good, that they would say, yeah, that was a good experience. You could justifiably say that the customer was delighted with what they've received. Yeah. Conversely, they make contact with you through whatever means it is. They don't buy from you. You haven't got it in stock. You haven't got what they want. It could be anything like that. And the process that they go through, well, the experience they endure is one they would rather not repeat. In other words, they have a bad experience. You could say that they are dissatisfied. Yeah. Let's say they come in and they make a purchase, but generally have a bad experience. I put the word satisfied in there. And let's say they make no purchase, but leave having had a very good experience. You could say that they're impressed. Okay, so 4 sort of states that a customer is left in after visiting you or any other business. The question is where's the customer against each of these different situations? Now we're going to assume in all of these that they're going to come in, but they're not going to make a purchase. Yeah. The reason we do that is quite simple. When everything goes well, in other words, they make a purchase and have a good experience, things are easy. It's when there's no purchase that things could be more difficult, and particularly obviously if they have a bad experience. And what I ask people to do is to say, okay, against these different scenarios, where's the customer? So in looking out means they literally pop through the door or visit your website, they take a look around and they go away. There's no interaction, nothing happens whatsoever. Where are they on the diagram? Well, you couldn't say that they were necessarily impressed or unimpressed. We don't really know. They're not going to be right up here for sure. Yeah. Equally, are they going to be down here? We don't know. All we know is that they're probably somewhere here. So really, it's not where we want people to be. We really want to be trying to get them up here. So what more could we do to push customers into this impressed box, to push them higher up and improve their experience? Okay, they come in, we help them. In other words, we do this business about trying to help them make the right choice. We run through, we ask them all the various questions that we do, whatever those are. I'm not going to talk about that right now. But for whatever reason it is, you haven't got it in stock, or you haven't got the model that they want, or I don't know, in the color, or you just can't get it. Whatever it is, they don't make a purchase and they leave. Where are they likely to be in here? Well, you've done your bit to help them, for sure. It is unlikely that they're going to have had a bad experience. I think it's fair to say, for this scenario, they are certainly going to be in this box, possibly down at the bottom, but nevertheless they are going to be in the impressed box. Are they so impressed that they will mention you and refer you to others? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. Okay. Next scenario. You come in, you help them, you haven't got it. You say, well, I can get it tomorrow for you. But the answer is no, I need it right now. Okay. Sorry about that. Goodbye. Hope to see you again. Where are they on here? All right. Well, we've done a bit more to impress them. So arguably they're probably higher up the scale. Yeah. You're doing more. You're providing a better experience because you're doing more with the customer to interact with them. You're impressing them more. Now things start to get interesting. What more could you do to impress them more? Well, yep, they come in, you try and help them. I can get it tomorrow. No, I need it now. Okay, you say, what I would do is I'd suggest you go to another shop. You make a recommendation. Shock horror. Shock horror. Yeah, we'll come back to this shortly. Yeah, a lot of people find this really difficult to swallow. Okay, I'd suggest X. Okay, thank you very much. They leave and they go to X. I couldn't possibly suggest a competitor. I'll lose that customer. Well, you've already lost them. You can't sell to them anyway. They need to buy it now. Yeah. If it's an existing customer, they're probably going to wait until they can get it tomorrow. And if it's an existing customer with a good relationship, then this person that you recommend them to better be a damn sight better than you for you to lose them. The answer is they won't be. Yeah. So this actually carries relatively little risk. Actually carries relatively little risk at all. If it's a customer who's never met you before, yeah, well, they're not a customer anyway. Yeah, you've already lost them. Yeah, the worst you can do is leave them feeling that visiting you was a complete waste of time, which is why this becomes important. All right, but let's go even further. Let's go even further, and I do know businesses that talk like this and even more. So in help, need it tomorrow, I'd suggest X. I know that they usually stock it. Yeah, so you've given even more valuable information. Yeah, I don't know whether they've got the brown widgets. I know they certainly sell the green ones. I don't know whether they've got the brown ones. In this one, you're saying, no, I know they usually stock those. So that's a good place to go, and they leave. Yeah, yet more impressed with where you are. Now things start to get possibly a little more challenging. But I have met with businesses that will actually do this because they have good relationships with other businesses in their area. Go through the whole thing again, and they actually call ahead. You want the brown widgets? Okay, let's just check whether they've got them at the moment. And they call ahead. Yep, your PC's fixed down the road, over the other side of town, in the next town, wherever it is. I know they've got them. You can go and get them. Or, if you'd not rather do that, let the customer call the other business and say, well, I'm calling, I've been advised that you might have, and so on and so forth. And then they leave. Again, more and more of a better experience for the customer. Yeah? Remember what I said, if it's an existing customer that you already have a good relationship with, this other business is going to have to be hugely better than you for you to lose them. If it's a customer that you've never served before, you've already lost them, yeah, because you haven't got it. Wouldn't it be better to leave them feeling that it wasn't a waste of time that they came into you? That in actual fact, you went out of your way, this phrase, go the extra mile, yeah, this is evidencing that you're the kind of business that will do that you went the extra mile for that customer. You said, yeah, why don't you call ahead to that shop, see if they've got them, or I'll do it for you. And then perhaps as a joke, you go and get it for them, but that is a joke. It's just provided there to show pretty much what on earth could you do next. But my whole point is never give customers reason to say that was a waste of time. Yeah. Never give customers a reason to say, well, have you tried your PCs fixed down the road? Well, I did once. I popped in and asked about it. They didn't have it in stock, and I didn't find the guy very helpful. Yeah, because that's the kind of thing they would say. So it's all about how they are treated. Yeah, how you treat people matters hugely. Being able to suggest other businesses is not going to kill you. Yeah, it's actually going to bolster your reputation, the quality of service that you've got, your insight into the market, all kinds of things about you and a business person. It's actually very powerful. But, probably here is where most people can go to. Personally, I really don't see any reason why you can't make it down here. You should know what people are stocking because you should be price conscious and have some way of finding out, either visiting them directly, yeah, or looking on their websites about the kinds of things that they stock. Letting the customer use your phone to call ahead, that's not going to kill you, is it? So just think about that and what you're doing by not being able to suggest. It's the least bad option. Okay, that's the way to look at this. It's the least bad option. Which is the better referral? So let's say, I'd refer X usually stocks. Is it better to send them to PC World, or is it better to send them to your PC's Fixed, their competitor down the road, or over the other side of town, or wherever it is? Because I know customers that will say, oh yeah, I just refer them onto Curry's. Yeah. Or customers who, well, we've already found out, I wouldn't dare refer to a competitor. Yeah. The issue with this is very simple. The issue with this is that this is an entirely different value proposition to the customer. By value proposition, I'm talking about those three things again. Yeah. The price, the worth of what you charge people versus what you give them. Yeah. The perceived value of the quality of the products and services that you offer, and most importantly as well in this particular instance is the quality, the service level that you provide as an independent expert running their own computer business successfully rather than somebody who has a job working at PC World because they happen to be a bit interested in computers. It is an entirely different value proposition. And we would say, Paul and myself, the royal we, would always say, never refer to Currys and PC World. But yes, absolutely. Find other businesses, ideally that you can be friends with, where you would refer. Yeah. If you're out of stock on something, build a relationship somewhere with another business that you can trust. Where they're out of stock, they'll refer to you, or they can't do something, or they're overworked, they just don't have capacity to do servicing, where they will refer to you and you will refer to them. This is the better referral by far. So talk customers into buying. Regardless of whether you make a sale or not, always impress them. Always seek to impress them. Never give them that chance to say that was a waste of time. This is another example that we run through in the workshop, and it's a simple one where I get a flip chart and I turn it to the back of I turn it away from the class, as it were, and I go around the room asking people a simple question, and I ask them to respond using the very words that they would say. So they have to imagine they're actually in the customer situation. Yeah, say to me the things that you would say to the customer. Yeah, not what you would say. Don't describe how you're going to treat them. I'm going to ask you a question and I want you to respond to it. And the question's very simple. I walk through the door, I'm on the phone, whatever it is. I want a cheap mouse. How much do you sell them for? What do you say? Now, typically, it's things like this. Well, cheap mouse, yeah, I've got this one at whatever price. Cheap one, I don't tend to stock the cheapest ones. I can get you one tomorrow for this price, or I stock this model and it costs at this price. Now, there's an issue here, because how is that helping a customer make the right choice? Yeah, that is called waiting. Yeah, that's coming to the table and taking the order for a burger and chips. That is nothing to do with helping a customer make the right choice. Where is the customer service in that interaction? It is not there. Pure and simple. You may be as polite as anything. You may have been smiling, as pleasant, and all the rest of it. But you're not helping a customer make the right choice. You are not actually servicing them. You are taking an order. Interesting. So these are words I would suggest strongly that you try and work out how you can build in your way of saying this into how you would respond. A budget mouse. So yeah, I want a budget mouse. How much do you sell them for? Your answer is a budget mouse. Now you've options with that. Can I first ask you some questions to make sure I suggest the right things? Yeah. Simple phrase, but you've taken control. The customer may say, no, I'm just interested in the price. And that's fine, but you have offered, you have demonstrated, you have used words that will convey that you are trying to service the customer, that you are trying to provide customer service for them. You've given them the choice on that. They can refuse and say, no thanks, it's all right, I just know I need a budget mouse. Okay, and then there's other ways that you could come at it as you're talking to them. Yeah, as you say, well, okay, a budget mouse, I've got this one here, it's at such and such. What is it that you're using it for? And you can bring all that stuff in at that point. And many of you will say, well, I already asked that, and that's the way that I do that, and that's the way that I achieve this. You're working at an entirely different level, okay? You've not up front communicated and made it very blatant and plain that you are trying to provide excellent customer service. And that's the reason why I go back to this and stress it. Yeah, you have to provide the evidence. You have to almost tap the customer on the shoulder and say, I'm providing you good customer service here, and use the words. Yeah, you've provided absolute evidence you're a competent professional in their eyes. Yeah, because you've listened. How do we know that you've listened? Because you've repeated the question that they asked you. You're demonstrating you're knowledgeable right up front by the simple use of the phrase, you've got options with that. Yeah, they may not, but you're conveying the sense that you know more, and you've shown that you are genuinely customer-centric. Okay, so this is a great phrase to use. Using these words, it reassures and inspires confidence in you. It saves customers the disappointment of a wrong purchase. You're going to take them through a process that confirms that what they're asking for is actually what they want. And it gives them the feel-good factor of making the right purchase when they do. Should you find that they've come in and said that they want something that there's actually a cheaper option for that will do what they want, then that will impress them. Your honesty and your integrity will have a big impact on them. And lastly, of course, it lets the customers choose. You're providing them with options. I'm not suggesting you provide them with dozens of options, but two or three, I should say, is where you're trying to be. Yeah, and the customer may still saying, help me choose, and that's fine. You then start talking to the customer through the different benefits and consequences or downsides of the different products, if there are any. You help them choose. So talking customers into buying. Selling is not flogging. Okay, I do talk to some customers who get very confused, I think, about the whole issue of selling. You can all sell, guys. You can all sell very easily. It doesn't mean becoming Arthur Daly. It just means actually using what's already in your head, but using phrases and words that allow you to bring it out and make the customer crystal clear that you're trying to help them make the right choice. Okay, key customer service behaviors. What are they? This is another one we go around the room and typically ask the questions of, and people throw up things, but I'll run through them quickly here. The key basic customer service behaviors, the core things. It's all about smiling, being approachable, nice, friendly. This issue of listening. Yeah, and listening isn't just sitting there quietly. It's actually an interactive process. It means asking questions, taking notes, and being patient, not filling in what the customer is saying, not ending their sentence for them, as some people do. It's all about those three things, making notes. It's about having a positive, can-do attitude all the time, stressing what can be done versus what can't. Empathy. Talk about it a lot. That's the kind of nodding, the yes, I see. So yeah, okay, so you've mentioned that's okay, that's fine. Yeah, I can see why you might feel like that. Yeah, I can see what you're trying to do. Those sorts of things. Repeating and paraphrasing. That's all about confirming. That's a very important behavior because that confirms that you're listening. Yeah, but that's why it's here as a customer service behavior, because they don't know that you are. Yeah, they can see some evidence here, but what are you really doodling? What are you really doing? You can tell what's in my mind there, can't you? What are you really doing? You might just be doodling. You don't know. They don't know. So that's why it's there, and it goes back to the point I've been making time and again, which is about you have to provide the evidence that you are doing these things, and it's about speaking plainly. Okay, not using jargon. Now, if any of you have CCTV in your shops or at work, yeah, or if you can rig up a webcam on yourself, I would suggest that you do that. And you go through it and you record yourself each and every day, and you spend a bit of time flicking through each customer that you deal with and the degree with which you did any of this. Yeah. Are you smiling? Are you listening? Can you see the evidence that says that you're doing these things? Because you'll all say that you probably do them, all right? But I know through some of my training experience, I know that what people think they do isn't necessarily what they actually do. And that's not because they're lying, absolutely not because of that. It just has to do that there is sometimes a difference between what's going on in your head and how it comes out in your behavior. And because there may be an awful lot of things whizzing around in your head at any one time, you may be thinking that you're repeating and paraphrasing, when in actual fact all you're doing is grunting. Yeah, we might not be even doing it at all. So if you can record yourselves doing these sorts of things, then that's a great start in improving how good you are. What's on your mind when a variety of different situations occur? And again, we usually go around the room and we talk about these things. We're coming up to 5 minutes to the end. I will press on. An elderly couple walks in versus a woman with a baby crying walks in, or a phone call starts with, what's your best price for? Or you're talking to somebody who's a know-it-all. Or you're talking to somebody and you're advising them and they're constantly coming back, yes, but do you have anything cheaper? Or somebody that's coming in and going, look, hurry up, will you? Hurry up with you. Yeah. Yes, I may have options. I'm in a rush. The simple question is, what's in your mind? What are you thinking about in all of those different situations? And quite fundamentally, how does those different situations and can stress challenge your abilities to do these things? And the issue here is essentially, can the situation that the customer lays on you actually compromise the impression that you will make with them? Now, I'm not suggesting that you doggedly push on with doing all of these things regardless of what they say. But for example, if you've got oh, hurry up, I'm in a rush, you say, well, look, you really do have options on that. I'd hate for you to get the wrong choice here. Look, is there any chance you could come back at a different time? Because there's some things that we need to discuss. Well, what do you mean by that? And you're off, okay? Yes, you still need to have a prompt discussion, but you're off and you've got the person listening, yeah? Or, I don't know, the know-it-all that's coming in, yeah? There may be other, you might start asking them questions. Which may sound a funny way to do things, but you might start asking them questions about, well, what is it you think you need then? Tell me, well, what do you know about? Yeah, and it's just another way to engage with them. But ultimately, to remain on this path of providing good customer service, just through the basics of the way that you treat people. And I go back to that whole point about treating people is incredibly important. How you treat people is incredibly important. So what's in your mind will show in your behavior. And this other point here, it's easier to dissatisfy challenging customers than easy ones, than when everything is going well. There's never a problem. When everything goes well, everything is fine. The true gauge of how good you are at serving customers is the challenging ones. And if you're having difficulty in dealing with what you classify as difficult customers, then I would argue that you've got room to improve. Because yes, there will always be challenging customers, but you should be able to handle them with ease. And we've covered some things there that will help you do that. So how do you deal with a customer who always wants advice but rarely buys? They're always on the phone. Yeah, my computer's running a bit slow today. Have you got any, what can I do to speed it up? Yeah, I've got a virus. How do I remove it? And, you can imagine, and I'm sure many of you have examples of customers that try and bleed you dry. How do you deal with them? How can I speed up my computer? Might be a question. Okay, so you want to speed up your computer is your response. First, you're demonstrating that you're listening. Well, I'm always pleased to help customers. You say that smiling, perhaps through gritted teeth, but nevertheless you say it smiling because that's a key element of good customer service. But you're also laying on the point here that you're pleased to help customers, yeah, not hangers-on and freeloaders, but customers. You've options with what you can do. Can I ask you a few questions? Okay, this is all about the standard stuff with how you better engage customers and help understand the fact that they have choices. Now then you start getting into the real bones and meat of what you're trying to do here, because you can't disappoint this customer by telling them to sling it, because all they'll do is tell other people that that's how you speak to them. So you have to start working on the real issue, which is the risk that they may be taking in doing what they're asking you of. Well, I can only go on what you're telling me. To avoid any problems, can't you bring it in? No. Please, can't you just tell me how to speed up my computer? Well, it's you that's making the changes. I'd hate for it to go wrong. Are you absolutely certain that you can't bring it in? I could visit, there would have to be a charge, but I'm most concerned about this. Yeah? Are you absolutely sure that you can't bring the computer in? Well, if you really think that that's the case, I suppose I could. Or you may still get the, no, just tell me what to do. And then you go on and you explain in the terms that you would to help them. but you've gone through that process before you've made them pay. Yeah, you've made them pay the price of the advice that you're giving by showing them that you care, yeah, and that they are taking a risk. You can't be criticized for caring. You can for bad service or manners. And remember, it's not up to you as to whether you gave bad service or manner or have bad manners. It's down to the customer and what they think. Okay, so there's some insight into how you might provide service to a customer who tries to bleed you dry for advice. How to deal with price objections next. Okay, what is behind, and this is another one we go around the room on, typically, what is behind all price objections? And people usually say things like, well, the customers found that they can get it cheaper elsewhere and they don't think they don't understand the price and so on. And all of these are valid, but what customers are really saying is that they don't understand the value. Yeah, they suspect you're trying to make a bit extra. And if you think of it like this, then you can really see why handling price objections becomes exceptionally important. Because if you generate a reputation for being perceived as greedy, as a little bit more expensive than you should be, then that's going to be a very hard thing to shed, and business will punish you for it. So handling price objections matters hugely. What can you do? Here's an example. I can get it cheaper at another independent. You can get it cheaper at your PC's Fix. You can get the mouse cheaper. You can get a PC Health Tech cheaper. Whatever it is, repeat the question. So you've shown you've listened. Then you're into dealing with the price objection. Well, I really appreciate you telling me. You smile, and you're genuine about this because you are, and we'll find out why you are in a moment. I really appreciate you telling me because I take great care over my pricing. Okay, so you're immediately letting the customer know through your choice use of words that they haven't necessarily wrong-footed you by coming in with a cheaper price, that you are price conscious and that you appreciate the information and you're going to take it seriously. Do you mind if I take a look? And you look on their website, you might even give them a call and kind of mystery shop them to find out the information. Why do you do that? Well, for a start, you have to validate that a direct price comparison is being made, that a fair and reasonable price comparison is being made. And okay, for the sake of argument, that could mean the products are identically the same. From a customer's perspective, that may sound a little false. Certainly from a customer's perspective, you need to be able to point out tangibly if there are differences in the product, what they are, and therefore why the price is different. But regardless of what you find, you have to find out, firstly, where your price is positioned compared to the price that they've quoted you, and then deal with it in a particular way. Okay, I've been in business a number of years. I care about my price reputation. I set my prices by checking local competitors. If you go around for the same mouse, service, whatever it is, you'll find such and such does it at this price and such does it at this price. If you take part in the retail price comparison, you could even say, I've been price checked, and you'll find that my prices are very good. And then there's other things like, well, I've got this shop and staff to pay for, particularly if the other supplier has not. All right, you're talking about justifying your price. Okay. You can't be criticized for pricing fairly with your peers, is the bottom line, but you can for profiteering. All right. You need to be able to explain your prices are fair and reasonable, which immediately means you can't just sit there and price in isolation thinking, well, I'll charge for this what I think it's worth. You're going to have to find out the prices on the major items in your shop or in your business, the services that you're providing and what your competitors are doing. Yeah, and price fairly with them. Don't seek to underprice. Remember, the 5% under demands something like an extra 20% in volume, the 10% under a 43% in volume, depending on your margin, of course. Yeah, underpricing makes work very hard. Just price fairly. I can get it cheaper on the web. Well, typically you start again. So you can get it cheaper at Amazon. Okay, well, I really appreciate you telling me this. I take great care over my pricing. You mind if I take a look? Yeah, because you're framing this not as a case, not in the sense of, well, I don't believe that, I demand you to show me. You're framing this as, I really appreciate you telling me because I take great care. And then a few things that you might go through. This was taken from the Open Day in 2013. And we did a session, or I did a session called How to Be Internet Proof. There are some things you have to recognize about the internet. It's an entirely different value proposition. It's purely transactional. And there's little to reassure the customer other than the words that are written on the page. And they wouldn't say anything negative, would they? Okay? So it is literally a case of shopping and buying what's on the shelf with very little chance of being able to check whether it's right, wrong, whatever. It's low price because there's no real value add. That's the ability to be able to talk to you, the ability for you to be able to check that the customer's buying the right thing. And all it leads to, because of the way the internet works, it's utterly frictionless, and you get all the price comparison sites that go on, and it does end up in an exercise where only two things matter: price and availability. Yeah, price and availability. That's all that matters. So it's not competition. There is no value add. If you look at the meaning of value, remember it was the price, it was the intangibles, it was the quality of products and services, and most importantly, it was the level of service that you offer. Yeah, it's all about price. Being internet proof. Should you price match to be the same as the internet? Well, absolutely not. As we've already looked at the impact of discounting on profitability. It will also bring you the wrong customers. Yeah, not just because you're the same as the internet, but because you're cheap. And there's substantial evidence in working with other customers that find that if they price at the cheap end of the marketplace, they just attract bargain hunters. People who are only interested in getting an even lower price, rather than customers who always expect a fair price, but are prepared to pay a fair price. And it shreds your reputation. This whole business about how much you cost versus the perceived value that you are. How can you claim to be a local independent expert when you're as cheap as Amazon? Yeah, you can't do it. Instead, stress and be proud of the fact you have better service and be able to explain that clearly. Don't be afraid. The issue is how do you explain it when they come in and put the gun to your head? Well, here's again some words to help you. Okay, I'd love to be able to help you, but you need to understand the differences. And you then go on to understand why your prices are actually fair and that you're not being greedy. And some things that you could say, here's some examples. I have staffed premises and stock to upkeep, but they don't. But this means things like you can touch and see my products are authentic and not just an image on a website. Yeah, you can discuss and try things before you buy rather than rely on the website blurb. And you don't have to go through the process of sending it back if it's wrong. Yeah. If you like, I can help you make certain you're making the right decision. You don't have to rely on their sales speak because everything written will never be negative. And that doesn't mean that you won't sell by trying to emphasize the positives on your product, but it does mean the customer has the chance to ask any questions that they want and you can answer them. More things to say should anything go wrong. I'm here, not just available on a phone. You won't have to send anything away. Nothing's going to get lost or broken in the post. Okay, 9 times out of 10 things don't get lost or broken in the post, but sometimes they do, and it is a risk. You can buy it here and now, not wait to get it shipped to you. Now that may or may not be an issue. Okay, remember, if people phone your business or walk into your shop, they want to buy. Yeah, they have come to you in the hope that they will be able to buy. They haven't come to you just purely for the sake of doing it. They don't want to spend all day traipsing around town or calling up loads of other businesses. They prefer you to be the right one. Okay, so you do have that advantage. And afterwards, you can come and see and talk to me anytime, face to face, about anything. Yeah, we're here to help. So there is a huge difference, a big way of justifying the service level value. Okay, by talking about the fact that you're prepared to talk about advice. And I'll keep you up to date. Again, this is another angle on service level with alerts on upgrades and not spam you with sales emails. Yeah. customers who bought also bought, and all that sort of stuff. And even other things to say, which you could do if you want to. Stories about Amazon and online traders not paying tax, I contribute. And I run this shop here employing local people, creating employment and helping improve the prosperity of our locality. People do genuinely care for this sort of thing. Some don't, some do. Okay, but you'd be surprised how many do. So why not, with people who are looking to shop on the internet, why not invite them in? Yeah, do that thing. Invite them in, but they're not going to buy from me. They're just going to pick my brains. Well, the issue here is, would you prefer a chance to build a relationship or not? Yeah, because that process of picking their brains does build a relationship. And all right, some of the people who come in may always buy from the internet, but you will convert some. That's the end of that one. Moving swiftly on, we're nearly there. Talk customers into buying. The web is cheaper. It always will be, and it should be. It must be cheaper. It is not the same value proposition. So a price objection from somebody quoting a web price is not unreasonable. The issue is the customer doesn't get this bit. And your job in talking them into buying is to understand why it has to be cheaper. I can get it on a big chain. Okay, surely there's no competition, all right? This is the final straight that we're into now. We did some survey work with customers, essentially to produce some material that they could get published in their local papers. But one of the things it did was to find out this piece of information here. We basically walked up and down the high street in different towns and asked people a number of questions. And one of the pieces of information that came out was this. Consumers would use you more, local independents, if you were more price competitive. Now, this is very interesting, especially when you take the results of the retail price comparison into account, because over the years that we've done it now, the 3 years that we've done it, independents consistently come out as better value, cheaper in price terms than the big chains. So what's going on? They are masters of illusion. They use this stuff called brainwash, and they have 2 big tools that they are using to put customers into that opinion. And the first is the loss leader. Yeah, they are large enough and have a broad enough product range to be able to choose to either make minimal profit or even lose money on certain lines at certain times. Yeah? And that creates an impression of them being better value generally. And we'll come back to that in a moment. They also have huge marketing budgets. Yeah, so they can go on TV, the supermarkets, particularly PC World in our case. Yeah, you'll see them regularly on television, advertising and telling people, as I said earlier, this is how much a laptop should cost. That's what they're saying. What they're doing is they're giving a special offer on TV that isn't necessarily representative of all prices of all computers in their store. They're just picking out the particular lines of what they want to shift at any one time. They have huge costs, okay? One thing to remember is that they do have huge costs. If you look at Maplins, as an example, to run Maplins, they have to earn, as a business in revenue, £40,500 per annum for every employee. So that's not how much each employee costs. That's how much each employee costs, and all the rest of running the business costs. Yeah, that's a huge amount of money, because they're certainly not that's not how much each employee costs. But remember, they've got all the overheads of their business, their head offices, all their retail space and all the rest of it. The issue is, if they've got huge costs, they need a very large markup. And we know from looking at their reports and accounts, the likes of Maplins mark up on average 100%. They take their cost price and double it on average, and that's what they stick on their shelves. B&Q multiply by 1.8. Okay, on average, this is what these businesses are doing. Now, they're disguising that through their loss leaders, which is what draw people in. But once people are in, the other products and services they buy, things like the cases, the media, the ink, you name it, the best one is cables, isn't it? Will be marked up massive percentages. Supermarkets mark up batteries 375%, would you believe? Milk is even marked up around about 36%. It's incredible what they're doing and how they're using loss leaders to lure people in. So what you have to do is explain their tactics and their greed. And you do this as follows. So you can get it cheaper at PC World. I really appreciate you telling me that. I take great care over my pricing. So all the stuff that you would normally say. Do you mind if I take a look? Yeah. And once you've looked, yes, it must be so cheap. That must be a loss leader or a special offer or a temporary offer. You do know they draw them in. They use them to draw people in, I should say. Overall, my prices are generally better, and that's based on the retail price comparison data. I'll come on to this in a moment. One other thing just to bring into this, a lot of people believe that the big chains buy at a huge discount compared to your pricing. That isn't true. That isn't true. Yes, they do buy marginally cheaper because of volume, but to think that they're buying at something like half the price you do or even less is clearly wrong. It's more like 10%. Yeah, it is nowhere near as much as you might think it is. Okay. Overall, my prices are better. For example, here's some examples I just want to run through. Okay, this again is taken from the Open Day in 2013. And this is about price competition and how to do it. Where your price advantage, go head to head. Now, this is a little sheet that a business in Leeds called Crossgates Computers has used in the past. It's slightly out of date. This was from a couple of years ago, and the owner there, Lee, is happy for me to show you this. But this is what he's done. Crossgates Computers prices, PC World, Staples prices, Comet. You can see how out of date it is, but nevertheless. And he's put on some standard products. Yeah, and he's put on products where he's always going to be price advantaged. All right, bang, up front, there it is. And he has that. It's under some sticky back plastic on the top of his counter. So when people come in and want to talk about pricing, there it all is, in cold, hard evidence. And it's a bit like the way that Gary earlier on, and I showed you, it's a bit like the way that Gary up at GBiz has priced his memory sticks. You could also go further with provocative marketing like this. Yeah. So you know that cable prices in the likes of PC World and Maplin are ridiculous. You're just making the suggestion that you could buy here for less. And that's the kind of thing that will prompt inquiry. The picking your battles is an interesting one. This is about where you are price disadvantaged and how to handle where you may not be able to compete directly on price on a particular product. So Lee at Crossgates, again, has been typically creative and has thought about his price for the total cost of a new laptop. And again, some of this pricing may be slightly out of date, but he's got his prices versus another retailer's. And I think this is a Dell price at the time. But he's showing, yeah, I'm more expensive, but I do these things as included in my price. Whereas if you go to this other retailer, they'll charge them. And indeed, look at the difference. Yeah, what is that? That's about 70, 80 pounds cheaper. 80 pounds cheaper, I think it is. Yeah. So he's boxing clever. This is what I mean by boxing clever. Get away from selling on the direct price of the item. Bundle it up. That's a bundle. Bundle it up to price advantage yourselves. Yeah. And even there, I would say that's a very large difference. There's I would say possibly a psychological point about breaking the £400 mark, but I would suggest that that could easily go to $399 and still be a very competitively perceived price. Okay. Another way of doing that is this is just another way of framing things using a different piece of artwork and a different way of doing it. And these prices aren't necessarily accurate, but they're just there to show you how you can use it. So a new laptop, including these services at PC World, would cost you this much. I'm doing them for this much. All right. Again, it's a product bundle that you are selling to disguise the fact that underneath, yeah, your computer may cost $375 and there's $285, but you're prepared to do these future-based services, which is another reason I've put these here, these future-based services for this price. And that's the reason they're here. You see, this is all, Well, maybe the antivirus might not be, but certainly a lot of what's here is all stuff I've sold and walks out the door and I have no reason to follow up on. These are future services. What's clever about these is these give you reasons to make contact with the customer in future. Because part of the setup of this would be that after 6 months, come in and get your free health check. In fact, I'll set you up on the system to get you an email out in 6 months' time, or I'll call you and you can come in. Okay? Go on the offensive. This is about being assertive, conspicuous, and feisty. There is no reason why you can't be challenging in your advertising. Yeah, the supermarkets do this on TV, as you know. Provided your information is accurate, which this won't be because this is out of date now. Provided your information is accurate and not misleading, you've got no problems. And we've also stressed on this one, there's another reason for this, local independent retail, better value, better service. Yeah, stressing that angle again. So, explaining their tactics and greed. Yeah, you go through the same things. You can get it cheaper at PC World, Maplins. I really appreciate you telling me. I take great care. Mind if I take a look all the way through? And you've also got the artwork that you use to promote your services over them and to expose their tactics and their greed, not yours, because you're not. Show up the big chains for what they are. The key to price objections in all cases is very simple, and not enough people prepare themselves adequately and therefore end up in trouble. And it's being able to articulate why your prices are right. Yeah. If you operate on the basis of guessing what your price should be, I price at roughly what I think is right, and that's what I charge, you are opening yourself up to be cut off at the knees because you have no way of articulating why your prices are right. Yeah. If you price by being the same as the internet, you're just throwing away profit anyway. Yeah. If you don't know what your competitors are charging, you can't articulate why your prices are right. Yeah. You can't use the point that says, well, I know you can find it for £10 at your PC's fixed, but over the other side of town at our PC's right for you, it would be £15, blah, 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 blah. And you show that your prices are right. You have to do the legwork, unfortunately, when it comes to pricing. And I know businesses genuinely who make a point of once a month spending a bit of time in a PC world, for the sake of argument. Yeah, I know a business that does that particularly. I know other businesses that go out of town to local villages around the city that they're in and shop the local providers. Walk in there, have a look about, have a chat with them, see what they're up to. Yes, it takes time, but it positions you entirely differently in how you can deal with price objections and how you can sell and add value to the quality of the service that you provide and defend your pricing. So a summary. It's okay to talk customers into buying. Yeah, you need to offer them choice. It's okay to offer them choice. Customers detest being sold to. Yeah, it's okay to show you care. You cannot be criticized for showing you care. You can for not. You can for being rude. You can't for showing that you care. It's okay to cost more than the web. Yeah, the web has to be cheaper. And it's okay to point out how the big chains operate. Nobody will mind you taking a polite pop at any of the big chains. Yeah, everybody knows that they're out to make money. They're big business. They're big corporates. Yes, we all tolerate them. But start taking a pop at other local independents. Well, firstly and mainly, people won't appreciate what it means because they probably don't know that local independent. But everyone will probably know a PC World, an Asda, a Tesco, and all the rest of it. You have to talk customers into buying. Regardless of making the sale, you always have to impress them. In other words, that's that point around avoid at all costs anyone ever visiting you and being able to say in any way, shape or form, that was a waste of time. And this is particularly relevant to new customers who walk through the door, the people that you have not seen before. Yeah, and you have to be able to explain why your prices are fair and right. If you don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to price objections. It's very difficult indeed. So we're there. We've run over by nearly a half an hour. Instant Profit's been about how to make more money from the next customers you serve. We've covered off, it was all about denying yourself reasonable profits. That's been the goal of today. We've had 3 different sections: putting prices up, making customers unhappy, which is basically getting them to think about their satisfaction with you and what you can do to actually understand what that truly is rather than what you think it is, because what you think it is probably not what it actually is. And it's all about been talking customers into buying. Okay? And that's been to do with price objections. It's to do with how you present yourself and use words to communicate very clearly and unmistakably that you are on the customer's side and out to help them make the right choices. Yes, it has been today about trying to take any emotions out of many of these things and give you rational knowledge and explanations about what to do in those different areas. Possibly challenged some perceptions, values and beliefs about how you run your business. This whole business, for example, of to do with recommending others can be one that some people find difficult to accept. The complete issue, without even going into any detail, of raising prices, others find almost impossible to consider. Confronting what you might call unconscious or conscious complacency. Yeah, you're happy, you're satisfied, things are ticking along, but bottom line is, you could be doing better, and really you should strive to. Making change the right, easy thing to do, in other words, making it compelling, and giving you some ideas about getting you going. So that was what today has been about. I'm going to be issuing everyone with a customer satisfaction survey. It'd be fabulous if you could complete that. It's done online, and I'll be sending those out very shortly after we conclude. If anyone, for any reason whatsoever, wants to has a simple question that might be a 2-minute conversation, or wants to do something entirely different, or has a completely different issue they want to talk about, or whatever, I'd be more than happy to talk to you. There is my direct dial number, my mobile number, and my email here at Target Components. Okay, we're here to help you, and that's what we want to do. Thanks very, very much for taking part, everybody. Let's have a look who's still with us. Oh, we've still got 3 people. Well done, you made it to the end. And I hope to see you all again in the future, and hopefully at the open day. And with that, I'm going to sign off. I'm going to